It's official. The most controversial streamer in internet history just sealed his fate in the most spectacular way possible. What started as reckless content creation has exploded into a full-blown international incident that's got governments scrambling, legal experts panicking, and an entire industry questioning whether IRL streaming has gone too far. We're not talking about typical streamer drama anymore. We're talking about diplomatic tensions, criminal charges, and a man who may have literally streamed himself into permanent exile. The streets are buzzing, immigration lawyers are in shock, and the people who thought they understood internet fame, yeah, they're probably reconsidering everything they know about online consequences. So here's what just went down. Johnny Somali, real name Ramsey Khalid Ismael, is facing criminal charges in South Korea that could result in up to 10 years in prison. But even if he somehow gets a light sentence, sources familiar with immigration law say he's effectively banned from returning to America. Not temporarily, forever. And the reasons why will blow your mind. But this isn't just about one streamer's downfall. This is about a complete transformation of how governments worldwide are responding to toxic content creators, and what we're uncovering behind the scenes is even more explosive than his public meltdowns. Let's rewind a bit. When Johnny Somali first started his international streaming career, everyone assumed he was just another edgy content creator pushing boundaries for views. Controversial takes, provocative behavior, maybe some minor legal trouble that would blow over. Standard internet personality trajectory that ends with apologies and comeback attempts. What nobody saw coming was how quickly his actions would escalate from annoying to criminal, from local incidents to international diplomatic concerns. According to multiple sources within law enforcement circles, Johnny Somali isn't just facing charges in South Korea, he's created a paper trail of criminal behavior across multiple countries that makes him essentially unemployable as a content creator and unwelcome as a citizen. The South Korean charges alone paint a picture of systematic criminal behavior. Obstruction of business, assault, drug use, creating public disturbances, and violating broadcasting laws. But sources familiar with the case say these are just the charges they can prove. The actual scope of his alleged criminal activity extends far beyond what's been made public. One insider described the evidence against him as overwhelming and undeniable. They claimed prosecutors have hours of video footage, multiple witness testimonies, and documented patterns of behavior that show premeditated criminal activity rather than spontaneous poor judgment. But here's where it gets even wilder. The American embassy in South Korea has reportedly refused to provide assistance in his case. When foreign nationals get into legal trouble abroad, embassies typically offer consular services, legal referrals, and diplomatic support. In Johnny Somali's case, sources say the embassy has essentially washed their hands of the situation. This isn't typical diplomatic protocol. When American citizens face serious charges overseas, the State Department usually intervenes to ensure fair treatment and due process. The fact that they're reportedly staying silent suggests Johnny Somali's actions have crossed lines that even diplomatic immunity can't protect. Multiple sources within immigration law circles describe Johnny Somali's situation as unprecedented in terms of self-inflicted damage. One prominent attorney, speaking anonymously, said they've never seen someone create such a comprehensive case against their own immigration status through publicly documented criminal behavior. Then came the nuclear moment that really exposed how deep his legal troubles go. The leaked audio recordings. Sources claim South Korean prosecutors have obtained audio evidence of Johnny Somali making threats against American citizens, discussing drug use, and planning criminal activities. If true, this evidence could be shared with American law enforcement agencies, creating domestic criminal exposure. But that's not even the most shocking part. According to people familiar with immigration enforcement procedures, Johnny Somali's public statements and documented behavior have created what legal experts call voluntary self-deportation evidence. He's literally provided prosecutors with everything they need to argue he's a danger to public safety. The Philippines precedent is particularly damning. When authorities there asked the American embassy to take back another problematic streamer, Vitaly Zdorovetsky, the embassy reportedly refused. If the same thing happens with Johnny Somali, he could become stateless, a person without any country willing to accept him. Immigration attorneys describe this scenario as legal limbo, where someone becomes essentially trapped between countries. No nation wants to deal with the problems they create, but international law prevents them from being left without any legal status. It's a bureaucratic nightmare that could last years or even decades. And here's what's truly wild about this situation. Johnny Somali seems completely oblivious to the severity of his circumstances. His social media posts from detention show someone who still believes he can talk his way out of consequences through political connections or public pressure. In one leaked video, he's seen asking Donald Trump to impose tariffs on South Korean products unless he's released. In another, he suggests changing his name to Johnny America or Johnny Jewish to gain political protection. These aren't the statements of someone who understands the gravity of international criminal charges. Sources within the streaming industry describe Johnny Somali's delusions as disconnected from reality. One prominent content creator, speaking anonymously, said, "He thinks this is all content, all part of the show. He doesn't understand that real-world consequences don't care about your subscriber count." The ripple effects are already reshaping the entire IRL streaming landscape. Platforms like Kick have implemented new rules specifically targeting the type of content Johnny Somali popularized. Streamers who show banned creators on camera now face immediate suspension. The entire ecosystem is being restructured to prevent another Johnny Somali situation. Multiple sources within streaming platforms describe emergency policy meetings focused entirely on preventing the next international incident. Legal teams are working overtime to create guidelines that protect platforms from liability when content creators break laws in foreign countries. But here's where the story takes an even more dramatic turn. The international response has been unprecedented. Countries that previously ignored problematic streamers are now coordinating enforcement efforts. Immigration databases are being updated to flag content creators with histories of criminal behavior. Sources within international law enforcement describe a new category of person being tracked: digital nomad criminals, who use content creation as cover for illegal activities across borders. Johnny Somali has become the poster child for this emerging threat category. The economic implications are staggering. Tourism boards in multiple countries are reconsidering policies toward content creators after seeing the negative publicity generated by problematic streamers. Some nations are reportedly developing streamer visa categories with specific behavioral requirements and monitoring systems. Japan, Thailand, and several European countries have allegedly created informal blacklists of content creators who won't be granted entry visas. Johnny Somali's name is reportedly at the top of every list, along with associates and imitators who followed his model. The psychological profile emerging from his detention videos reveals someone completely unprepared for real consequences. Mental health experts who've analyzed his public statements describe patterns consistent with narcissistic personality disorder and complete disconnection from reality. One forensic psychologist, speaking anonymously, described Johnny Somali's behavior as textbook antisocial personality traits combined with internet fame delusions. They suggested his inability to understand consequences stems from years of online validation that insulated him from real-world feedback. The technological aspects of his downfall reveal how modern surveillance makes criminal behavior impossible to hide. Every stream was recorded, every location was tracked, every interaction was documented. Law enforcement agencies have access to more evidence than they've ever had in similar cases. Sources within digital forensics describe Johnny Somali's case as a prosecutor's dream because the defendant literally recorded and broadcast his own criminal activity. Traditional criminal cases require extensive investigation to establish evidence. In this case, the evidence was live streamed to thousands of viewers. The cultural impact extends far beyond streaming. Johnny Somali's behavior has damaged relationships between American content creators and international communities. Sources within cultural exchange programs describe increased scrutiny and suspicion toward American digital nomads and content creators. Multiple countries have reportedly tightened visa requirements for Americans claiming to be influencers or content creators. The assumption is now that these individuals might be cover identities for people planning to create problems, rather than legitimate cultural exchange. But the most disturbing aspect of this entire situation is how Johnny Somali's influence has spread to other creators. Sources within the streaming community describe copycat behavior from creators who think controversy equals success. The Johnny Somali model of content creation is being replicated by people who don't understand the legal consequences. Law enforcement agencies in multiple countries report increased incidents involving American streamers engaging in provocative behavior for content. The pattern is always the same: escalating controversy, criminal behavior, legal consequences, and claims of persecution when arrested. The deportation machinery is already in motion. Sources familiar with immigration enforcement describe Johnny Somali's case as expedited removal, where someone's behavior is so problematic that normal due process protections are waived. If convicted in South Korea, he could be immediately transferred to American custody and face additional charges. But even if he avoids conviction, immigration experts say his documented behavior provides grounds for denying re-entry to the United States. The Immigration and Nationality Act allows exclusion of individuals who pose threats to public safety or national security. Johnny Somali's own content provides evidence for both categories. The streaming industry response has been swift and decisive. Major platforms have implemented international incident policies that automatically ban creators who face criminal charges abroad. Sponsorship deals include morality clauses that void contracts for legal troubles. The entire economic model that supported problematic content creation is being dismantled. Sources within talent management describe Johnny Somali as unemployable in the entertainment industry. No legitimate platform will host his content, no sponsor will associate with his brand, and no country will grant him the visas necessary for international content creation. Looking ahead, the sustainability questions that will determine whether this represents an isolated incident or the beginning of systematic crackdowns on problematic content creators. Will other countries follow South Korea's aggressive prosecution model? How will streaming platforms balance free expression with legal liability? What happens to creators who've built careers on controversial content? These unknowns create suspense around the ongoing narrative, but one thing is absolutely certain: the era of consequence-free content creation is over. Johnny Somali just proved that internet fame doesn't protect you from real-world legal systems, and governments worldwide are no longer willing to tolerate disruptive behavior for the sake of entertainment. The Johnny Somali case represents more than one streamer's downfall. It represents a fundamental shift in how societies respond to digital age antisocial behavior. The message is clear: content creation doesn't exempt you from criminal law, and international borders won't protect you from consequences. The reverberations will continue expanding for years to come, and every content creator, every platform, and every government will feel the impact of what just happened in South Korea. The age of accountability has begun, and there's no going back to the Wild West days of unregulated streaming.